All right, welcome to another edition of the Stick Elliott Show. Today we've got with us one of my favorite horror hosts, Dr. Gangrene, Larry Underwood from Nashville, Tennessee.
What's up?
And he's going to be telling us his story, and he's going to be sharing with us about his career and his up-and-coming projects. So thank you for doing it today, Larry. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah. So my first question is, what age did you watch your first horror film, and what was it?
That's, I have no idea really. Probably, the ones I remember are after school, the Universal classics. One of the Frankenstein movies maybe, but it would have been Frankenstein, Wolfman, something like that as a kid. Yeah.
And when did you decide that you wanted to be a horror host, and what other horror host, if any, made an impact on you and said, you saw him on TV and said, I've got to do that? That's just awesome.
Well, our local horror host growing up here in Nashville was Sir Cecil Creek, who was on in the Nashville area from 70 to 73, which would have made me 4 to 7 years old at that time. I remember I didn't really watch his show. My parents didn't really let me stay up and watch it, but I remember seeing the commercials for it. I remember being impressed with him, and I remember meeting him one time at a Boy Scout event. They did this Boy Scout rally. I think it was one of the kite derbies. He made an appearance, but I remember all of us being there, and we met him, and we got this patch that said Sir Cecil Ghoul Patrol. This little like Boy Scout patch.
Yeah, nice.
And so years later, Chuck Angel, who I started the show, he and I were doing comic books. We actually ran our own comic book company. We're writing and drawing comics and self-publishing, and we had just kind of gotten through its run, and we were looking for another creative venture. And I had always toyed with the idea, sort of doing something video-wise. Thought about it in the back of my mind. I had a neighbor when I moved to this house who he used to live right around the corner here, and he had a cable access TV show. His name was Jack Wood, and he kind of I found his show flipping through the channels one day, and he said, introduced himself. We got to be friends, and I was asking him about it, and I kept asking him a lot of questions. He's like, "You want to do this, don't you?" I wasn't really sure I wanted to, but kind of thought about it for a little bit, and then thought, what the heck, it'll be fun. So told Chuck, I said, I know what our next thing is going to be. He goes, "What's that?" I said, "A horror host show." He went, "What's that?" So after I explained it to him, really, when I decided to do a video show of some kind, a program, TV show, a horror host program was the only thing that interested me, because I wanted to do something like what used to be on the air in the 70s, but was no longer. This was in the 90s. This wasn't being done around here. And I didn't know at that time that any other horror hosts were doing it. I just knew that I wanted to do it. So, the internet in 1999 was in its infancy. It was there, but I had never gotten on and searched for other horror hosts or anything like that. We started the show in July of 99, and was another horror host, Count Gordeval was the first one that reached out to me, and kind of.
Oh, you're very familiar with him.
Yeah.
So, and you said it started in July of 99?
Yeah, started July 99. July 1st, 1999 was our first show. At that time, when we started the show, they would only give us a 30-minute time slot. Well, they would either give us 30 minutes or an hour. Well, movies are hour and a half to 2 hours, and we'd have to cut everything down anyway if we're going to go to an hour format, or split it into 2 sections.
And that was public access, right?
And this was public access. And we started here in Hendersonville, public access. So what Chuck and I decided to do, since we couldn't really show the movies, at least not all in one piece, was to do a show about the movies. So it was me hosting kind of a hodgepodge show of trailers, music videos, interviews, and going about town and showing anything that had to do with Halloween or spooky things in the Nashville and Hendersonville area. And we started here in Hendersonville, and within 2 months, I'd say, I had moved it onto the cable access in Nashville as well.
Yeah. Well, did the show catch on pretty quickly with the public, or was it a slow build? When did you start knowing that, hey, I'm making an impact? People are starting to talk, there's a buzz.
It took about a solid year before I really started getting any kind of feedback. So we were just kind of, for a year, just working in a vacuum, just doing it because it was fun, putting it out there. I did get contacted, like I said, by Count Gordeval. He said, "Hey, I saw your website on the internet, I didn't know there was anybody else down in Nashville doing this, and I said, I didn't know there was anybody else doing it, period. And he said, yeah, there's a handful of us, and he kind of pointed me towards a couple other guys, and I actually met him in Chicago, I guess it was in November of that year. My mom had some frequent flyer miles, and I flew up there and met him. But it was about a year before we started getting any feedback, and then we started getting fan letters, because we would put the email on the address. Hey, if you want to, for more information, or if you want to contact us, Chiller Cinema at, I think it was tripod.com back then. But we would put that at the end. But we started getting emails, started getting fan letters, and then slowly that would build, and I'd start getting recognized when I was out, at the grocery store or something. People were, hey, usually they recognize my voice. That was the weird thing. It's like the goggles are like Superman's glasses or something. They didn't recognize me without the goggles.
Right, yeah.
Like, hey. But they would hear my voice, and that would kind of clue them.
Well, that's awesome. How much work goes into the production of the Dr. Gangrene show? Like, how long does it normally take to shoot, edit, and get the episode ready for TV? Like, how many people would you say you have on your production team?
Well, it kind of depends on what we're doing, as far as how much actual footage we're shooting. Back when we were doing the Chiller Cinema show, it was Chuck and I at first, and then slowly we started adding more people in, and then got a sidekick named Oogsley for a while, and then a nurse Monique for a while. So it would usually vary from 2, me and a camera guy, to maybe 4 or 5. And then as far as number of hours, it could take, I usually did all the editing on the show for the first part of it, and then Chuck kind of took over for the second part of the Chiller Cinema, and then for the later runs of Dr. Gangrene Presents and all that stuff, I did all the editing. I've spent 80 to 100 hours on an episode, easy. It just depends on how much intensive editing and cutting I have to do. If it's a 30-minute show, we did a lot of editing for those, but if it's a 2-hour show, you can imagine, that's 4 times the amount of footage. But you've got a movie in there, so you're just cutting the movie, but it just depends.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did you transition from public access to, like, I know the CW? That's when I was living here. That's where I saw your show come on. How long was that transition before you went to public access to that, and how did you go about getting that spot?
So I think it was 2004, 2005, something like that. Actually, I know we backtrack a little bit. We started in '99. Sometime in early, I think it was 01 or 02. I contacted the WB, local W. Yes, it was WB first. No, it was UPN. Yes, I contacted our local UPN station, and I actually bought late night television space from him. He sold me 30 minutes of time. I think it was for $15 a month or something like that. $20 a month, something crazy. So it was ridiculously low.
Yeah, that's very affordable. I would have thought it would have been way, way more expensive.
Well, this was like, we're talking like 2:30, 3 in the morning. Oh, okay. Midnight hour, and they cut me a super low rate. So it was, it was just super low. But I did that for a little while, and then I got tired of night. Again, I wasn't getting any kind of feedback at that from that show, like I was off the cable access show. But we took it back off for a while because it was kind of an experiment, because I didn't know how it would go, Mm-hmm. Well, ironically, just so happened that a few years later, I approached the WB, which later became the CW, and I called and talked to the program director there, and I told him who I was and about my show and what I wanted to do. It just so happened that the guy I talked to, the program director, is a guy named Michael Hook. He was the guy that was doing playbook back at the UPN station. He was the one that used to stick my tapes in and actually play them at 3 in the morning. And he knew who I was and said, "Oh man, I love your show. Come in, let's talk." So that's why, just that UPN show paid off, because I put it on for that short amount of time. He knew who I was. He was willing to talk to me. He said, "Come on in," and he did. And he gave me, so that's how he gave me the spot, and it was a great run.
Indeed, yeah. How did you come up with the character Dr. Gangrene? I know some of the horror hosts, some go with vampire, some go with werewolf. So how did you come up with this character? How was it inspired?
Okay, so back then, one of the most popular shows on TV was ER, the show ER,
Yeah.
and Anthony Edwards' character on there.
Oh, Goose from Top Gun.
Yeah, he played a character called Dr. Green. And back then, I used to get stopped. I work at a hospital, my day job. I'm not a doctor, I just play one on TV. And I was getting stopped all the time and told, you look just like that guy from ER. I mean, people would stop me in the hall and say, you look just like that guy. And they were talking about Dr. Green, so my character's a mad doctor, kind of a play off of doctor. I thought, well, we'll just play on words off Dr. Green, Dr. Gangrene.
Right.
So that's where that came from.
Very cool. I always wondered that.
Yeah.
So, well, what was your family's reaction when they found out about the character in the show? I mean, were they pretty supportive, or were they just blown away? What was their reaction?
Yeah, they were supportive. I think they thought it was fun. You know, I think it was trying for my wife at the time. I think it at times became, well, a bit of a handful for her, but she was supportive about it. She was fine. Everybody was good, and you know, it was every weekend people here at the house just different people every weekend doing something crazy out in the shed. We shot in a little shed out back of the house here.
Very cool. I really, you'd mentioned Nurse Monique. I really loved her character. I just thought y'all complimented each other, and just the chemistry was really good. Whatever happened to the actress that played Nurse Monique, and what was her real name?
Her real name is Linda Wiley, and she is now living in Indiana, I believe. She has moved up north. I see her at Wonderfest every year, which is a convention in Louisville, Kentucky. So the Rondo Awards, which are an award for classic horror excellence, is held up there every year. They actually do their awards from Wonderfest, and so she and David Colton usually kind of co-present the awards to everybody that shows up there. And since I'm there, I'm of course sitting in on the award show, but I see her there every year. Yeah.
I know over the years, it's not just just a horror host show. I know you've got some pretty good recognition from your show and your Go Green campaign. Could you tell us about your PSAs, how they came about, and what kind of recognition that your show received for that?
Sure. So after Chuck and I worked on the show, right about the time, I guess, that I went onto the CW, the WB, Chuck stepped aside. He had other things going on, and he just couldn't do the show anymore. So we shot for a number of years with different cameramen. A guy named Brian Hickman was my guy for a while, but eventually I met a guy named Cameron McCaslin, and then he moved away for a while and then moved back to town. And at that point, I wasn't working with anybody, and I called Cameron and said, hey, I heard you were back in town. Would you be interested in working together? And he said, oh yeah, absolutely, let's talk. So we sat down, we did, and we've had a fantastic partnership ever since. The Go Green campaign, it was actually Cameron's idea. He said, we should do some PSAs and shoot it just like the old school PSAs, but use Dr. Gangrene and horror motifs, giving environmental safety messages and environmental messages, like don't litter or don't pollute, that kind of thing. And we did, and it's been great. The cable access station shows them all the time in between everybody's shows. I pepper my shows with them. Other horror hosts are showing them. Marlena Midnight out in Wisconsin shows the PSAs in their shows constantly. Matter of fact, her producer Blake, I was just talking to him this weekend. He said, "Yeah, everybody up here thinks you're a cast member because we show your commercials so much."
Nice.
We got an Emmy nomination off of it, and we won a Rondo Award for it. So yeah,
very impressive.
It's really been a nice little, fun and profitable. Rewarding thing that we did. Yeah.
I know you see PSAs on TV, and sadly, most of the time you kind of overlook them, but yours truly caught my attention because I am a horror fan, and that's cool that you reached out to, our audience like that, and I just thought it was so good, and it really caught my attention.
Yeah, you got mummies and zombies and
right.
werewolves and whatever, so yeah.
Right. So I know you mentioned Cecil earlier, but who are some of your all-time favorite horror hosts, and how many are there, you think, in your estimation, spread across the United States right now?
There's been a resurgence within the last decade of horror hosts, and that's due mainly to the internet. Cable access brought about kind of a wave of horror hosts about the time. I was one of the first kind of early guys. I mean, there were a few. I found out later, A Ghastly Ghoul was doing a show, and The Ghoul was doing one at that time, and Son of Ghoul was doing one, and Dr. Madblood. There were a few scattered about, but there weren't many. But cable access came aboard. A bunch of us started doing that, but really the modern wave came about with the internet, which, mid-2000s is when that really kicked in. So early to mid-2000s, you started getting a bunch of guys, and now just recently you get even more putting things on Roku and putting things on the internet, and just it's gone, gone crazy. I would estimate, it's hard to say. I mean, there's no more than a couple of hundred, and probably far less than that, probably less than 100. It's hard to say. I would estimate 50, 60 to 100, somewhere in that range. And some of my favorites, Count Gordeval, certainly Svengoolie, Rich Coase puts on a fantastic show. Penny Dreadful, she's great, good friend of mine. I mean, there's a lot of guys doing good work. Marlene at Midnight, those guys do good work. So, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of great hosts out there.
I know when I first moved to Nashville, it was in 2006, and I saw you at one of Ben's horror cons, the Full Moon Horror Cons. I noticed you had a nice little crowd around you, so I saw how many fans you have. It's awesome, and I was wondering, is it true that you became ordained and married two of your fans? Would you be open to doing that again in the future?
It is true. It is true with the Universal Life Church, which is kind of the one where you just sort of get ordained through the mail or whatever, or through the internet in this case. But yeah, I did. A couple of good friends of mine who I'll see one of them tonight, Jimmy and Sam Faust, and that was pretty cool. I mean, it was actually one of the cooler things I've ever had anybody ask me to do that came from the show. Spun out of the show. Yeah, so I was honored.
That is so cool. And would you and you'd be open to doing that again in the future?
Yeah, I'd do it again. Sure. Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the Creeping Cruds asked me to do one of his wedding, perform his wedding, and I think it's gotten postponed for now. I don't even know if I'm supposed to talk about this, but
okay.
Sorry, McNasty, if I'm not supposed to, but
okay. So, also, I take it that you're a fan of metal. I remember seeing you at the premiere of the Lemmy documentary at the Belcourt Theater in Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
Who are some of your favorite metal and punk bands, or any other kind of band that you'd like to mention? I've always noticed that you're kind of like the stuff I like, metal and your horror films and stuff. So, who are the bands that you grew up listening to and that you love nowadays?
Well, I grew up listening in the 80s, all the hair bands, early 80s hair bands. So, people like Iron Maiden and Scorpions and Motorhead and even the rock stuff, AC/DC and Kiss and all that early good stuff. And I'm still listening to Iron Maiden nowadays. I've got, if you look in
same here.
If you look at my car, man, it's like 5 Iron Maiden. I think right now I've got 5 Iron Maiden CDs and a Danzig. So
yeah, good stuff. And how did you become? I heard you mention the Creeping Cruds. How did you become involved with the legendary horror punk band from Nashville, the Creeping Cruds? I remember listening to their CD when I first moved here, and I was like, "Hey, that sounds like Dr. Gangrene." It was you, and I remember hearing your voice on there, just thinking that was so cool. How did you your paths cross?
When Gino, who is the lead guitarist and founder of the Cruds, moved to Nashville, he ran across my show, flipping through television, contacted me. I had them come to the station because one of the things I loved to do was have live bands. And I did a live show broadcast from the station several times. I was when they built a new station, I was the very first live show ever to broadcast from the new cable access station. And I would have them come in. So what we did, this was the early days with a different singer than what they have now. So they had another guy at that time, but we had them in and we recorded just a handful of songs. I mean, just set up and recorded all day. They probably did 7, 8, 9 songs. And it was interesting because they were different back then. They wound up repurposing them and changing some of the lyrics and making them different songs for the first album. But anyway, Gino contacted me. We got together, we became good friends, and we just, over the years, have worked together and stayed in touch and now hang out and get together regularly and do a show called the Horror Hootenanny every year, which is about to go to year 13. It's a annual horror rock event where I host the event. It's a Halloween. It's basically a big Halloween party. We throw our own Halloween party every year. Been doing it for 13 years now. This year's going to be at the end, and we've got the Forbidden Dimension coming down from Canada is the headliners. We've got a band called Mumula who's coming down from Indiana again, I think, or Illinois, one of the two, I can't remember. And the Cruds, the Creepy Cruds.
Yeah, I never get tired of their shows. They put on an amazing live show, and I think I saw you even in one of their music videos. I think it was shot at the Muse, I believe it was. I'm trying to remember.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was really cool. He was playing air drums and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think it was Come Out Neville. Yeah, that was the video that I saw you on.
Yeah.
But
gotta love a band that'll write a song about the last man on Earth.
Oh yeah,
or
of course.
The Omega Man in this case.
Right,
yeah.
Of course, yeah. So I've noticed that you work a lot with the super talented filmmaker Cameron McCaslin. How did you two meet and start working together?
So yeah, that's where we met. We first met. I think the first time we were talking about this recently. The first time we met was at a live appearance I did at a haunted house, and I think Cameron just happened to be there, and we kind of met and just sort of exchanged greetings. Then he contacted me again, and I did an appearance at a record store one time where he was working. But we stayed in contact through the internet when he moved. I think he was in Colorado or something, but he moved out of state for a while. But then when he came back, that's when I reached out to him and said, hey, would you be interested in working together? Because I need a director. I need somebody to run camera, be a direct the show. I need a partner, and he was interested. And it's been a good run for us. I think we both really just had a blast doing this. Cameron's great because he brought a whole fresh new. At that time, I was really kind of worn out. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time and with a number of people, and was real tired and just needed that extra boost of energy. And Cameron came in with fresh ideas and fresh approaches. Things like the PSAs, were his idea, and so I mean, I think it just kind of took off,
I really love the horror film The Lashman. I saw the premiere here in Nashville, and I spotted you right away. And when I saw you in the film, how did you get casted in The Lashman, and how was your on-set experience? Did you have a good time? Had you done acting previously to that, or?
I've done some small stuff in different roles. I did some stuff with George Dimick, local filmmaker here. I've done some stuff with, did a little bit with Don Farmer, another guy. Done a little bit with Ben Dixon. Just little minor roles. I actually with George, I had done some stuff in makeup, heavy, full prosthetic stuff, which was cool. For The Lashman, Cameron sent me the script, and he said, "Listen, look this over, see what you think. I want your opinion on it." And he's like, "I'm trying to hit all the stereotypes. I want to hit them all for a classic slasher film." So I read through it, and I said, "Man," I said, "you're missing something." I said, "You don't have the harbinger, the creepy guy, the guy that warns the kids not to go out there." I said, "And if you add it in there, I want to play it."
Right.
So he's like, "You got it." So he added the character of Eustace in there, the old man who warns them that the last man will get you.
Yeah.
And on set, it was great. It was just hotter than hell because they shot. I want to say they shot in August that year. And it was really, really hot. I was only there for a day, so my part of it was easy. I showed up and they were all hot and cranky, and they'd been doing this already for a couple days, I think, and still had more ahead after our shoot. I was only up there for part of the day. Luke and I, my son, went up, and so yeah, it was fine. But I think it turned out really good.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you being a man of many talents, so not only a horror host, but you're also a talented writer as well. Could you tell us about your book, Dr. Gangrene's Tales from Parts Unknown, and kind of tell us how that came together?
Sure. I'd always wanted to write and was too busy with kids, first off, and too busy doing this show to do it while producing the show. So, I had tinkered with it a little bit, but anytime I could have spent writing short stories, I had to put into writing scripts for the show or editing the show. So once the show kind of wrapped and we took it off the air for a while, you know, in 2012, I just sort of decided to devote myself full time to it. So in 2013, I started a project that I called 13 for 13, and that was a challenge to myself because I wasn't sure, you know, just how easy or if I would be able to do it, but I wanted to write one horror story a month for the whole year of 2013. And I did, and I got some of them published different places. So once I got the copyrights back from those stories from the different places, you know, because they want exclusive copyright for a year in most cases when they publish you, I just decided to put together a collection, short story collection. So I called it Dr. Gangrene's Tales from Parts Unknown because one of the stories is called Parts Unknown, about a wrestler who hails from parts unknown, but he's also a Frankenstein monster, so he's made of parts unknown.
Right.
Yeah. Nice. But anyway, so it's Tales from Dr. Gangrene's Tales from Parts Unknown, and I have the character of Dr. Gangrene host or introduce the movies at the beginning. I've got a guy named Bill Cope, did a great drawing of Dr. Gangrene, and that's at the beginning with sort of a little Rod Serling-esque type intro for each story. And I think I'm real happy with how the book turned out, you know.
Yeah. And where can you purchase this?
Get it on Amazon, Amazon.com.
Okay. I recently read on your Facebook page that your short story Strings was accepted into the anthology film Writing the Dark Frontier Tales of the Weird West. Can you give us a little taste of what the story is about? I know you can't do spoilers or anything like that, but can you just kind of give us kind of the feel of the story?
Sure, yeah. That story is interesting because Cameron has shot that for the next project we're doing. We've actually filmed that short story. So it is a weird western set, and we shot it in a little western town up in Kentucky, Hopkinsville, Kentucky. There's a little place up there that we shot it at, so it's a full town. So the backgrounds are awesome, and it had tons of actors in costume on set, and it's about a prisoner in this small town who's made the entire town mad at him. The sheriff and deputy have him held prisoner to take him to another town, but it turns out that he's more than what he seems.
Oh yeah. Now, is that I think Lee Vervoort from didn't he also shoot up there Guntown? That film, was that near there? Or?
Yeah, Guntown, same place.
Oh, same.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Yeah, Copper Canyon Ranch is the name of the place, and yeah, Lee shot his movie there, and we shot this there. Actually, Cameron shot the last one there too. So yeah, that's kind of. He's had a good partnership with that place and the people that run it. It's good people.
It's a beautiful place too. It's got so much potential. I mean, just for movies all day long. I mean,
oh yeah.
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 So, have you ever directed a horror film before, or if not, do you think we'll ever see you in the director's chair?
I've directed episodes of my TV show, plenty of those, and just little short stuff, commercials and whatnot that I've shot and directed. But I haven't done a movie. I've thought about it and probably will at some point, I guess. Cameron tells me I should, so he's like, "Yeah, you should do that."
Yeah.
But, not to this point, not yet.
Okay. And how do you? What's your thoughts on Elvira and Zachary the Cool Ghoul? I mean, I know we hadn't really talked about them much. What are your thoughts on them and what they've brought to?
How did I not mention them?
The horror genre.
Yeah, how did I not mention them for my favorite horror hosts? I mean, they're the top two.
Yeah.
I mean, Zachary is absolutely the best horror host of all time.
Oh, he's so cool. Yeah.
He is, and I've met him, and he's a fantastic guy, and he was the best host ever, hands down. And Elvira is right there with him. I mean, a lot of people talk about Vampira being the first horror host, but Elvira took it to the next level, and she took it nationally. And,
yeah, she had the personality, and yeah.
She did. She became the first national horror host, and who didn't love Elvira in the 80s? I mean, every guy was in love with Elvira.
Right.
You know, I mean, yeah, that's my girl. I wish I'd met Cassandra. I haven't met Cassandra yet, but I've met John Zachary. He's great.
Oh, so you have met Zachary?
I have. Talked to him on the phone earlier this year. I was doing an interview, one of my Scary Monsters articles. I called him up and got some quotes from him. And just a great guy. He's in his late 90s, and, you know, he's doing great. And
Horror genre keeps you young, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you feel about the horror genre today? Who's some of like your favorite new directors and some of your favorite new films?
Well, as far as the newer stuff goes, I mean, there's a lot of independent stuff that's a lot of fun. As far as the new horror movies, there's some stuff. I mean, a lot of them get a lot of hate because of the remakes, and I understand that. But I mean, like, I really liked. I'm drawing a blank now. The one with the two paranormal researchers that is based on the real story with the haunted doll.
Oh, The Conjuring.
Conjuring. I thought The Conjuring was a great movie. Conjuring 2 was okay. I thought Conjuring was great. There's some real interesting things being done, and then some things that are pseudo horror that I've seen, like The Guest. That's a great movie. That's kind of got those creepy vibes to it. But it's not straight horror. But man, it's really good. I like The Witch. The Witch was fantastic.
Love it too. Same.
Yeah. So there's some exciting stuff being done. I look forward to the new Rob Zombie movie.
Oh, it was really good. I saw the early showing of it. It was excellent. It was.
Cool. I didn't know that was in town. So I saw a Facebook post. Someone said, "Oh, I just got back from the new Rob Zombie." I was like, "What? I didn't know about that. I missed it somehow."
It was really cool. I think you'll dig it.
Yeah.
So, I meant to ask you also about I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tom Six from the Human Centipede movies. What do you think about him as being one of the newer directors?
Yeah, I don't know too much about his stuff. I haven't seen anything, but cool. I mean,
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, wish him luck.
So, what does the future hold for Dr. Gangrene, and what goals would you like to achieve?
The next thing we're doing is Cameron's shooting some short films right now, several of which are based on stories I've written, and we're going to put them together into an anthology film. Dr. Gangrene is going to be the host, doing my best crypt keeper thing.
Nice.
I'll be introducing the tales, and we're going to put them together and put that out next year. That's the goal. And then, so we're going to take that, and then what we're going to do is a little tour, and we're going to go around and show it in different cities. So, primarily at drive-ins.
Oh,
So
yeah, that'd be fun.
A little tour where we show it different places and screen it and take it around, and then beyond that, I'm really not sure yet. You know, I've toyed with the idea of bringing the show back. Just had a friend telling me yesterday, you should bring it back.
Yeah, please do.
I don't know. I'm really not sure. I might not. I don't know. So,
thus far, what's been your most rewarding moment as a horror host that it just blew your mind and you just loved? It made you even love what you do even more.
There's two things that happened that just absolutely were my favorite moments. Well, three things. One was when I got to my character got to appear in the Dick Tracy comic strip. That was pretty cool.
Wow.
I didn't see that one coming.
Right.
The writer asked me. He's like, who was a former Tennessee horror host himself down in Memphis, but is now the writer of that, and because he and I knew each other, he wanted to do this. Count Basil.
Count Basil. Okay.
Yeah. And the other two things, there was one where we were shooting at a haunted house again, and we were doing a gag where I got a whole bunch of kids together, and I said, okay guys, we're going to do a cut through commercial breaks, and they had a guy in a big skeleton costume. He was probably 10 feet tall or so. He was on stilts and had big hands, So he came up behind me and grabbed me and was choking me. I was like, oh, we'll be back after this, and the kids all screamed and ran after that. They thought that was funny. So we got done shooting, and I noticed this one kid was just kind of hanging around. All the other kids had dispersed and taken off. And he's like he's getting his courage up. And he finally walks up and he goes, hey. And I turn around and it's like, hey. And he says, thanks, man. I'll always remember this. And he turned around and ran off. And I was like, I turned around and said, see, Chuck, that's why I do it, right there.
Yeah.
And then the other one, the coolest moment, absolutely, was when my son dressed as Dr. Gangrene for Halloween.
Oh, man.
Which was awesome.
Yeah. Man, that's so awesome. So, in closing, for all the fans that want to keep up with you, where can we? What social media sites can we keep up with you?
Facebook and Instagram. I'm on both of those. I have a Twitter account. I don't really do too much, but you can catch me there too. That's about it. I have a website and a blog, and I won a rondo for my blog a couple of years ago, although lately I haven't been doing much there either, but I'm going to get back to it. It's getting Halloween season, so it's time, start gearing up some regular posts and I'm going to do some kind of countdown, top vampire movie. I've already done that one, but something like that, top, Frankenstein films or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Was there anything else you'd like to add about your show or your career in closing?
Thank you to everybody out there for all the support over the years. It's been fun, and couldn't have done it without you guys, and I'll see you at a convention sometime soon.
And we'd like to thank you for doing the Stick Elliott Show, and thank you for the years of entertainment, man. It's been so awesome, and we need you back. So.
And thank you, buddy, for being a good friend all these years.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, and thank you for doing the Stick Elliott Show.
Right on.